Episode 11, this week, the Menagerie. I'll do it as one episode because the fan response was overwhelming. My postal worker suffered herniated disc from carrying all the cards and letters, demanding it be in one episode. The internet crashed several times as people all over the world wanted one episode. One episode out of the Menagerie. It was 2 parts. We'll do it as one episode. This one, a famous episode. Star Trek was way over budget, and someone came up with the idea of using the existing footage of the unaired pilot as half of an episode. So they made a 2 part episode, and basically, they saved the budget of one entire episode. Cost-cutting measure it was. So this episode, both parts we'll get into, Enterprise diverts to a starbase. The starbase wasn't expecting them. They had no idea why they were there. Captain Kirk's like, but I got a message. The Commodore says, no you didn't. He said, yes I do. No you didn't. Yes I did. And went back and forth. Back and forth. Turns out, Captain Pike, the original captain of the Enterprise, as far as we knew at the time, changed later, but at the time he's the original captain of the Enterprise. He'd been involved in a very serious incident, had radiation poisoning, was disabled, was in a electric wheelchair with a light that blinked, once for yes, 2 for no. So he could communicate yes, no. That was basically all he could do. Now you might be saying, why did they maim him so? Well, the original actor Jeffrey Hunter wasn't available. Didn't want to do it. So they had to put in another actor, and they did this as a way to cover why it wasn't Jeffrey Hunter, the captain we saw in the footage. But anyway, well, Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy are trying to figure out what had happened with the communication that they had allegedly got, but the starbase didn't send. Spock kidnaps Captain Pike. Kidnaps him. He sabotaged the base, knocked a bunch of guys out with his nerve pinch. Then he told the Enterprise, okay, we're taking off, and he'd rigged a bunch of phony commands from Captain Kirk. Phony ones. Then when they got to Talos 4, the forbidden planet, where if you went to Talos 4, the orders from Starfleet were, you died. It was the only crime with the death sentence still attached to it. Go to Talos 4, we'll kill you. Anything else, you're pretty much fine, they said. But once they got to orbit, Spock says, yeah, I just mutinied. You can arrest me now, Doctor. And Dr. McCoy's like, okay. He was for words. Completely for words. They go to court-martial Mr. Spock because Captain Kirk and the Commodore chased him in the shuttlecraft. How a shuttlecraft kept up with the starship, I don't know. But it did. And then, when they went to do the court-martial, footage appeared. They couldn't explain the footage. They were like, how did you get this footage? Spock's like, never you mind. But here it is. And then they just casually said, oh, it's mental telepathy from Telosians putting things on our view screen. And they accepted it. And we saw the bulk of the pilot that unaired. It didn't air at all, but they used it in this episode. Cut up a little bit, I'm sure. That's what was going on. Of course, at the end of it, Captain Pike, who did not want to go to Talos, he made that abundantly clear, gets sent down to Talos, and they do their telepathy to make him appear that he was perfectly fine and healthy, even though he wasn't. But he had that appearance for the one other person that would care. There was the broad and the pilot who was disfigured because the Telosians had never seen a human. They saved her from wreckage that landed on their planet. She and Pike, the only 2 people there, they would see each other. No one else would ever see him, but apparently felt better that the one person could see that he was healthy. Made very little sense, but they did that. Then, there's no more court-martial, because Starfleet said, well, if you're going for Talos, that's fine. Fine, we don't mind, even though it's the one thing in the world that would get you the death sentence. But they were fine with it. Made even less sense, but that's the way that went down. Some very interesting notes. We learned that Starfleet was the most racist organization in the known universe at one point, because when Kirk got there, the Commodore wanted to show him the sealed confidential notes on Talos 4. It said confidential right on the book. Kirk says, but wait, if it's confidential, I shouldn't read it. And he's like, who cares? Then he opened it. There was a junior officer there. He didn't care that she was there. And on the pages of this book, it said, Talos 4. Only known people to ever been there, Captain Christopher Pike, and a half Vulcan named Spock. Why would you call him that? Why not Commander Spock? Why not Mr. Spock? Why not Science Officer Spock? It was half Vulcan Spock. Think of that were 2019 and they use that. Heads would roll. Heads would roll. Lawsuits would be filed. But that's how they kept referring to him in this book that was supposed to be confidential but was not. The Commodore didn't care. He's like, anybody can see it. Who cares? Very strange. Then when they get to the court-martial, everyone is in dress uniforms except Mr. Scott. He's just in his regular uniform. Everyone else in dress. Scott's like, it's just a formal court-martial. No need to dress up for that. And then supposedly the Commodore, who was one of the 3 people needed to hold a court-martial, was never there. He was a figment of everyone's imaginations, thanks to the Telosians. Spock apparently knew that, so he was never worried he was getting court-martialed. It was all a diversion tactic. It was all saying elsewhere was the imaginary tale of a boy looking at a snow globe feel to it. Very strange. Very strange. Some interesting notes though. Scotty, like I said, not in a dress uniform. Captain Pike was played by someone else because Jeffrey Hunter didn't want to do the show. He didn't want to be in Star Trek. Didn't want to originally, but took it hoping it would fail. And once the first pilot didn't air, he got a loophole he could get out of it. Only time we saw Captain Pike, I believe, during the original run. He wasn't referenced much. Uhura was in this one. Sulu. All the regulars in it. We also had a helmsman that we never saw before or since. He was even in command of the ship at one point. Spock put him in command when he was being arrested. He didn't know what to do. He was for words. He was just worried they were going to execute him for treason. We're going to Talos 4 even though it was pretty much out of his hands. Very weird episode. But they used it as, like I said, a cost-cutting measure, using the existing footage to make half of the episode, therefore cutting out a whole lot of expense. A lot of the backdrops that they had for the starbase, matte paintings. They just did a lot of matte painting work, which was common for Star Trek. You also got to see that Starfleet lied in their report because it said the only people known to have been to Talos 4 is Spock, who they refer to, of course, as half Vulcan, and Captain Pike. There are 202 people on that ship. Captain Pike said that during the footage that we saw from the original pilot. It said there were 202 people. Did all of them die? All of them? Even the original first officer, number 1, played by Majel Barrett, who went on to be the computer voice, as well as Nurse Chapel. Surprisingly, Gene Roddenberry Hyder had her dye her hair, so the network didn't notice that she was the same person they hated. Well, that was the thing. The thing they did. But yeah. The original Doctor, Dr. Piper, the helmsman. None of them on that official report of people that have visited Talos 4. It was very, very odd. But That's pretty much how 1 and 2 went down as one episode. Thanks for the fan support to decide it was one episode instead of doing it twice. So next week, we'll move on with the next episode. So pretty much episode 11.